Good morning and welcome to Rising. We've got another great show for you today. Lindsay, today I will concede that we are in very complementary colors and actually have been all week, if you've noticed.
That means we're on the good birthday vibes.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
We're vibing.
And I know you don't believe in astrology and all that nonsense.
Oh my God. But I keep having co-hosts who do.
Can I just tell you?
Brianna, Kim, same way. Go ahead.
You're a Leo, I'm a Sagittarius, and no matter how much you want to force it and fight it, we just get along. It just works.
Longtime viewers,
peanut butter jelly.
This is a thing. This keeps happening. I'm always with people. I've learned to appreciate astrology a lot more than I would have.
It's a beautiful, fun thing. You don't take it too seriously, but you should enjoy.
All right, I'm on board with that.
Thank you. Coming up on Rising, private wealth seems to be an unofficial operating arm in President Trump's administration. I'll definitely be breaking all that down about all these donations that have come his way in my lens later on.
Plus, Charlie Kirk ally Blake Neff is breaking his silence on the many claims that Candace Owens, my favorite person, has been making about Turning Point USA and Kirk's death. It will be really interesting to talk about.
And Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro had some fiery words for Vice President Kamala Harris over what she wrote about him in her book. But first, Robby, what is on your radar today?
Can't wait to get to all of that. But first, denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's also a recurring segment on The View. Yesterday, the ladies discussed the Tim Walz welfare scandal, which has become a very big story indeed. It turns out that 80 or 90 people, most of them Somalian, stole $1 billion in welfare funds from the public, and the state's governor, Walz, ignored whistleblower reports that something was amiss, possibly because Walz and other top Democrats did not want to alienate Somali voters, since they're a big constituency in the state. Walz, of course, was Kamala Harris's pick for Veep, a choice that speaks to the, shall we say, very, very short vetting window. One might have thought that Democrats or Republicans would have noticed the welfare fraud story, but national media has only seized on it following an expose by conservative writer Christopher Rufo. But I digress. While many Americans are outraged by these revelations, the ladies of The View think that the right is merely directing hatred towards Somalians, akin to Trump and Vance's criticisms of Haitians. Let's take a look.
Every time that happens, he pulls out a race card. Mm-hmm. Last time it was the Haitians who were eating the pets, and now it's the Somalis in Minnesota, who, by the way, there's only 84,000 Somalis in Minnesota, and 58% of them were born in the United States.
Yes. And 87% of them are naturalized citizens.
Yeah. But one of my spies told me that he lost support with the Somali Minnesota voters over the Biden administration's handling of Gaza. So again, it's personal. Everything's personal with him.
Look, I'm sorry, but the story's nothing like the Haitian pet-eating story, which was, in fact, largely made up. It was wrong and shameful for national Republicans to echo it. This story, though, it's not made up. It's very, very real and very serious. Now, like the Haitian story, it would absolutely be wrong to engage in crude racial stereotyping about Somalians, the vast majority of whom committed no crimes. But the story itself is real, and it's damning. And it is a true indictment of Tim Walz's governance. That's where I want to focus, and that's where Republicans should keep it. To the GOP, I say, please avoid the tendency to paint with a broad racial brush. As conservative radio host Eric Erickson wrote on X, GOP, Christopher Rufo has handed you an 80-20 issue with the Somali fraud story, and the Democrats are now circling the wagons. Don't screw it up. By the way, making it a race issue will screw it up. I agree with him, indeed. There are already some signs this issue could get screwed up, as MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell has now indicated he wishes to run for governor against Mike Walz. Mike Lindell is, to put it nicely, very nicely, too extreme to win a general election. The GOP would like to run on a platform of good governance and repairing the damage to Minnesota that has occurred under Walz's watch. Then they'll need a sane, moderate, experienced candidate, not a conservative media bomb thrower. Please take note, GOP. Please listen to me this time. You usually don't, but I'd like it if you considered it this time.
So I want to start from the top. I know that you love to criticize the ladies at The View, my friends.
Your
but
friends.
I think
know I do. Where's Alyssa been?
Well, she's pregnant, so I'm assuming maybe she's taking a minute.
Good for her. Congratulations.
So the president at a cabinet meeting called Somali people garbage. And so you acting like we should just skip over that racist part of the conversation is problematic, right?
I said we should not engage in it.
Yeah, no, but the president engaged in it. So for them not to address it is not appropriate for the type of show they have. They have discussion on why this can go left based on historically how the president
it's not like
has.
the Haitian story, which was just a false accusation.
Yes, which is
these accusations are true.
Fine. So separate the two, but we can discuss that the president used ridiculous language to describe an entire community that's inappropriate, right? Saying garbage, right? That we can both agree on that, if you would like to agree. But separately from the story, that has been my biggest concern, that we want to demonize an entire community for what would be, I brought up the numbers yesterday, 0.25% of the entire Somali population in the U.S. So the representation of people that committed fraud in Minnesota doesn't even represent 1% of the Somali migrants in the U.S. But I want to talk about...
Not a significant percentage of Somalians committed fraud.
Yes.
But a significant percentage of people who committed fraud were Somalians.
In this particular situation. So according to CBS, this case was part of a larger scale trend that was happening during the pandemic. If we're talking about the $250 million that people were involved in, I think about 70 of the 80 people we're talking about were involved in this case that was COVID-19 fraud and was collecting funds inappropriately and using them the wrong way. But during the pandemic, you said that we won't have like $1 billion here to account for. 250 million of that is this biggest fraud case they were looking into years ago during the pandemic. Across the U.S., almost $1 trillion, CBS is reporting, was lost due to fraud. It breaks my heart too. So it was a terrible time. And when you think about what Minnesota people were doing, it's not this anomaly that was happening in Minnesota and that's it. It was literally like across the country, unfortunately, people were committing fraud and they all should be prosecuted. And many of these people in the fraud case that was happening during the pandemic have been prosecuted, and Walz has laid out all the ways that he's pursued these people and said at the time of the pandemic, it wasn't the right time for him to go worry about fraud when he was worried about trying to save people and following what the orders were coming from above.
I would like my governors to always be worried about fraud and
Yeah, but it's easy to say in a moment of a
that's where I want to focus.
International pandemic.
I think that reflects a really bad governance on his part. It's like we'll ask questions later. No, you got to ask questions now.
But he wasn't the only one. Across the country, fraud was happening. We said $1 trillion was lost. So blame every single Republican and Democratic governor that didn't do a good job at accounting for the fraud from U.S. and international individuals. Now, I'll give you that Tim Walz has a response for COVID that I'll accept because of the unprecedented times. But there are recent accounts, as recent as this summer, where new fraud was happening in Minnesota that I looked into from reading this article.
Well, he's still the governor.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And so he cannot use that excuse.
He's going for a third term.
And he can't use that excuse that it was unprecedented times. There's actual stuff that happened in September and August that were fraud, I believe, of elderly people trying to find them housing assistance that was completely fraudulent. And so that accounts for the other people that we're talking about that's more recent. And so he has to come up with new responses other than unprecedented times, because right now and in August and September, we're not unprecedented. So he should respond to that and acknowledge that, yes, there were discrimination lawsuits that followed, which is why he might have been hesitant from Somali populations that were in this specific case.
Oh, okay, that's beautiful. They're going to commit fraud, and then if you try to call them out for that or prosecute them, they're going to say we're being discriminated.
The Feeding Our Future group had a discrimination case going towards. So you would be hesitant thinking that something is happening here where they're isolating one community.
So they're going to rob us and then weaponize our discrimination laws.
No, I think it should be thrown out. I think it should be thrown out. But that's what I'm saying. Like, all this was happening at once, which is why he might have had a slow response to the COVID incident. But the ones this summer, he should have a quick response and a quick answer as to why he wasn't looking into it. Because this issue has been boiling over for years, and just now, yes, like you said, the mainstream media is picking it up and paying attention.
Lindsay, you know that I am, by and large, a supporter of increased immigration.
Yes.
I am an outlier in that respect of people on the right.
Yeah.
People on the right want very little or no immigration at this point. And that's one of the more popular views of the GOP, is harsher limits on immigration. So I'm laser focused on incidents like this that I know will cause a backlash against immigration. And that is, again, that it's going to go to an 80-20 or 90-10 issue when people, I know not all of them were immigrants, but their parents immigrated here from Somalia. A substantial minority community comes here, causes great fraud, and then weaponizes our protections against discrimination to save themselves. That is going to make people want, okay, no more immigration from Africa, or no more immigration overall. And I am worried about that, because I think that would make us a poorer country, a worse off society. But that's going to take some policing of the bad actors among us so as to not poison people against immigration entirely.
And I agree, it's a problem, but we can't isolate one community just because of the bad actors that are several and few and far between. There's a very small amount of them. So that's the biggest issue for me.
Up next, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is accusing the New York Times of unfairly covering President Trump's age and health, of course. We'll be right back.